Hi, my name is Montserrat Lopez and the present document is a compilation of the information obtained from the different investigation and interference made throughout the course obtained from the observation practice below in the Escuela Secundaria Técnica número 152 Silvano Ánimas Meras during the confident due the sanitary emergency COVID-19 developed by the teacher information in the licenciatura en enseñanza y aprendizaje del inglés en educación secundaria, described by chapters that demonstrate the application of the observation of the school culture from the virtual classrooms. It shows the different changes and situations that because of the confinement and basic education have gone through and how schools are changing to learning in only classrooms. The document covers the different types of observation scripts, describes what is the school culture as well as the importance of ethnography and how are the different contexts within the classroom and how it affects student learning. For the collection of information where the different type observation models are used as an I, learning and situation were recorded based on a learning and situation we recorded based on the information obtained. The data collection and analysis of the key concept defined in the class and then observed in the practice session that look place on my tree of this year by teacher Hazel Popoca, where we were given the opportunity to observe what was described in observation scripts. The psychical development and education of individuals does not remain outside the cultural context, and for this it is necessary to know the objective of the school culture. The school culture of this work is to provide a way to use and implement the method of teaching about culture through objectives. General. To observe and analyze the different scenarios within the virtual classrooms of Group 2, how the school culture is carried out, and the different strategies that have been implemented that the acquisition of knowledge is effective for the student. Specific. Observe the interaction between the teacher and the student to know in the classroom environment is adequate and the knowledge in part is received. Analyze the scenario where learning takes place, where is the participation of both parties, students and teachers are interacting and help others to clarify a certain issues.
First, what is school culture? Is the set of norms, beliefs, attitudes, behaviors, knowledge, and rituals that are manifested in particular way in the educational institution. It is set of interpretation and theories in use shared by the members of the organization that determine the way in which an individual responds to habitual situation and codes for the partners of behaviors within an organization. Now, the social rituals are in intentions and capacities to communicate what is social accept in everyday life, and including the meanings that complete verbal and non-verbal interaction. The interaction between our individuals include by symbolic transmission of contents. The social practices, actions, activities, skills, and experience generate in society from which forms the organization that lives in the community expressed. By last is experimental practice. Is learning by doing process by which individuals by knowledge. And now, what is the ethnographic enrolled by educative research? is means of analysis of the way lives arise or group of individuals roles, the observation and description of what people do, how they behave and how they interaction with the others. Ethnographic in school is nothing more than the result of apologize. Ethnographic practice and anthropological reflection to the study of the school institution. Institution school ethnographics is characterized by three fundamental notes. The first is strategies used provide phenological data, and the ethnographic research strategies are empirical and naturalistic. And the balance is ethnographic research in holistic natural. And now, what is the fundamental of school ethnographic? The principal proposed it is understand that ethnographic doesn't have one but has several relate ones, among which the following stand out: the description of context and their interpretation in order to research and understanding, the dissemination of finding, and ultimately the improvement of educational relate all and other proposed that also mentioned are the culture description, interaction and understanding, dissemination and improvement, and self-knowledge.
Hello dear teachers, my name is Leal Trejo, and today I'm going to talk about the role of the context in the characteristics of school culture. I want to start with the importance with this. The importance of noticing this data is to realize the influence of environment in which these actors' involvement in a teaching and learning process develop. The context that exists within a school space is inseparable from the active contributions of individuals, their social partners, social traditions, and the materials at hand. Therefore, the different contexts in which we can find ourselves must not be understood as something definitely given, but are pulled dynamically, mutually, with the activity of the participants. It is well known that the environment is considered as a dynamic technique related to discovery learning. According to Piaget, a subject learns throughout a process of individual maturations, through their own actions, and in interaction with reality. Based on this perspective, it's deductible that all learning leads to a discovery of knowledge on the part of the individual. It's in the close context where the students come into direct contact with reality to find the possibility to discover. Next, we will identify and analyze the variables that can affect the context either directly or indirectly, considering all those elements that influence the school culture. Now, I'm going to talk about the geographical context. The geographical context influences the formation of educated citizens who have a general and comprehensive culture. Melbocan limits the north with the municipality of Texcoco, the south with the municipalities of La Paz and Nezahualcóyotl, to the east with the municipalities of Chicoaloapan and Ixtapaluca, and to the west with that Nezahualcóyotl. Its approximate distance to the state capital is 122 kilometers.
Goes hand in hand with the next point to deal with, which is an economic context in Chimalhuacan. The main economic activities in Chimalhuacan are trade and another traders, which points us reflect on the children of these families. And that we are currently going through an economic crisis. So there are families who have been unemployed or have a little sales. Some had to sell their appliances, leaving the children without a means to take their classes online.
Education framework. This current educational framework, it is Aprendizajes Clave, has been since 2018. It's important to know that this framework is meant to be face to face class, not online class. We have been in pandemic, has not changed anything or adapt to these pandemic times.
Analysis of the school culture. Now we must ask ourselves and question ourselves what is really happening in the school, in this virtual environment. We have to keep in mind that the school culture has changed a lot because of the pandemic. In this analysis, we are going to see the perspective of the teacher, the perspective of the observer. And according to the prioritization that we have with the teacher, Jaciel Popoca. Teaching a foreign language through visual media, the teacher's perspective. The teaching process has changed, not only in foreign language teaching, but everything else has changed. The way the teacher communicates with the students, the way the students do the homework, the classroom, the environment, everything has changed. Now, we have some particular points. We have the barriers, the virtues, the resources, the qualification, the student's response, the contextual factors, and the social interaction. That's all the points we have of the teacher's perspective. The barriers that we see, or with the teacher perspective, tell us some of the barriers that teachers must overcome. For example, is the technology gap, the internet problems, the communication problems, the assistance of the students to the class. We have all the barriers in this virtual environment. Virtues. Well, with this situation, the teachers, and the students became more resilient to all the situation that the pandemic come with. So yeah, that's the virtues of this environment. The resources. The resources that the teachers use to work with the students has changed. The use of the online platforms, the resource to teach. For example, the teachers commonly they start to use Google Meet. They start to use Google Classroom. Google Meet to give the class it's the new classroom. Google Meet is a new classroom for them. I have also Google Classroom that it's where the teacher submit the activities, the homework, and the students they take the homework in there. So yeah, that's changed a lot. It's all online. We have the teachers use platforms, use no way of teach even in Google Meet. Some others use new platforms, for example, like Mint for brainstorming. For example, we have the Jamboard, Google Jamboard, that it's like a whiteboard for the use of the teacher and the students. So yeah. The qualification. This is quite different depending on the teacher, especially if the teacher isn't related to the ICT, information and communication technologies. For example, the teacher Jaciel Popoca studied something related to computers and systems, so he was prepared for all the changes, this new visual environment. He was prepared for, because he knows how to use a lot of platforms, but this is not the case in all the teachers. Some teachers they don't know anything about the internet, the virtual environment. They don't know everything. So the qualification the was not there, but the teachers have to adapt their classes to this new environment. The students' response. Well, usually the students' response to this kind of class, the online classes, is negative. But we also must know why it's negative. We have to know the condition of the students. We know that the students, if they can be in online classes, but we have some other barriers like internet connection and the stuff that I talked before. We have here because if I can be in the online classes, all right, I can interact, I can discuss, I can ask questions and online learning media that I use. But then the questions arise: why can be interesting? Why they can be interested in this? We have the main issue of the students. They not interested in the online classes. So we have to keep in mind we have the problem of the interested and the problem of technology gap. So that's why the students response, they have negativity, mostly negativity response, but no, it's not the case in all the students. Contextual factors. The context of each students is always important for the school and the teachers because the session is becoming more often in these days, in these pandemic days, because a lot of contextual factors. For example, we have problems, economical problems, familiar problems, educational lagging. In this environment, we have a lot of educational lagging because the context. Sorry. The student can have a lot of issues to be in the school. So that's all the contextual factors that affects on the student in the school culture also. Now we have the social interaction. The social interaction were almost non-existent because in the classes were just few students, and because the classes were asynchronous, and when they were asynchronous, the teacher was the only talking, so there's no way that we have that social interaction. For example, in a normal class, usually just like student to student, student to teacher, and they turn each other, they have interaction. But in these online classes, we don't see that because the way we are in the online classes is Google Meet. The teacher make his class, but he is the only one talking. If the other student talks, it's only because the teachers ask them to talk. It's hard to have that social interaction that we have in the face-to-face classes. Now, we have the observer's perspective, the process of the classroom interaction. We have the main focus, the process of the classroom interaction to our observation. All right. So, the classroom interaction covers classroom behavior such as turn taking, questioning, and answering, negotiation of meaning, and feedback. And in this case, in these online classes, we don't have them. We don't have that questioning, answering, negotiation of meaning. We don't have that in these particular online classes. Well, we have the assistance. Attendance in online classes has been affected because various factors: lack of internet at home, lack of devices, even lack of communication with some students or the students with the teacher. We have a lot of issues. The teacher Jaciel Popoca told us that when the meetings were held to work synchronously to video call, only between 3 or 5 students were connected. So it was very difficult to maintain the communication with the rest of the group. The resources. The resources is a very important thing of teaching and taking a class, no matter what subject. As observers, we see and we realize the change of in the type of resources that we're using in class. We see that they try to use platforms, they try to use videos, internet pages, but these also have a problem. The resources depends on the internet connection. Sometimes we have the lack of participation of the students, so the teacher has to improve or search for alternatives of interaction with the students, as asynchronously or synchronously. Efficiency of the resources. As mentioned before in the previous sections, the resource is a very important part when it becomes teaching a class, because they support the teacher and the students. As observers, we realize that the efficiency of the resources, support the teacher and the students. But the efficiency don't only depends on the internet connection or the willing of the students to willing of participate. If a lot of students do the activity, no, depends on the characteristics of the group. We have to know the necessities, the objective for each specific group. Yeah, that's when the efficiency of the resources comes to the table. Values. The promotion of values in the schools raises the possibility of a better future. The purposes of fostering values is to achieve the integral development of the students. The formation of values and attitudes has been one of the main purposes of the basic education, appealing to the need not only to spread knowledge, but also to train students with values. This probably sounds impossible to do, consider that you only have 15 minutes per class with students. However, thanks to the observations we realize that this can be worked in different ways, from delivery on time to the respect that the students show to their colleges at the time of participating. Interest and motivation. Motivation and engaging the students is very important because it's a turning point to the students to become interested not only in the class, also in the content they are learning. The motivation and the interest of the students is quite important for the learning environment, because if a student is interested, is engaged, even loves the content that he is learning, is very interested in, the learning environment will be great, will be comfortable, and will be relaxed. And the students feel a learning environment more efficient, even for the teacher to teach and the students for learn when the learning environment it's comfortable. But however, because the classes are being in online, the teachers don't have the opportunity to have the same content with the students, and the students cannot interact with each other, which really hinders this. What could be observed as a clear example of fatigue of the students to take the class, the teacher was interested in motivating the students. However, at the moment, it's not easy because the students are not comfortable and relaxed enough with the learning environment at this time because of the pandemic. Evaluation. Evaluation of the student serves so the teacher can know the evolution of the students' learning, modify the teaching strategies, identify those resources that may be useful to address content. But because of the lockdown, because of the pandemic, this has changed because we also have the technology gap, we have communication issues, we have all that problems that cannot carry on a properly evaluation. That's why the teachers, in this case the teachers who allow us to observe this class, told us that at this time the evaluation is only summative, because there are many students that they're not summing or cannot sum in their activities, or they're summing not completely, or just have some issues to submit activities, or they're not having communication. So just to be present or deliver anything you be evaluated with a 6. So because the way of the online classes has affected the way evaluation. How can evaluate someone when you can talk to her, you can communicate with, but you cannot just like put a 5 or like F, because there's sometimes they cannot have the class because some problems, some contextual factors that they cannot control. Learning environment. Learning environment are environment created for acquisition and arrangement of learning and develop of competencies of students, all directed by the teacher. Learning environment must manage integrate all the elements that are made of an effective system that encourage the autonomous learning, where the students take the responsibility of construction their own learning. Despite the fact that the classes are being developed online, it's necessary to achieve a learning environment of its own for the students and adapt to their own needs. The teachers shared with us that the school reduced the total class at least at half. So there's not much opportunity to interact with the students. In addition, the way of working was mostly asynchronous, in platforms like Google Meet, Google Classroom, and platforms to submit activities. However, many of them didn't deliver them, or either which made such a more difficulty to develop an adequate learning environment because the students didn't submit or have issues with the activities, submit activities. So that's why it was difficult to develop an adequate learning environment for each student. Conclusions. We conclude that learning and teaching process have changed because the context has also changed. This pandemic, this lockdown made the teachers and the students improve how the classroom can be. But this new way of seeing the school, all the school culture, the context, the school, the classroom, has a lot of problems generated by the same context. For example, the technology gap just got bigger with this pandemic. So that's also made some students desert because some the students have some issues with communication, even with go to the face-to-face classes. Now we have the issue of, for you can be in the class, you have to at least have internet and a device to connect with. So that's why a lot of students desert because of the pandemic, because of this. We see some internal context, but just with that we can notice the problems that the teachers have in this situation. With the use of ethnography methodologies, we could research and know more about the school culture. Even with this little taste, the little taste of the internal context of a school, the real internal context, the way it is, we're able to see different strategies to make this new classroom works, this online classwork. We see all the issues, all the problems, all the barriers that online classes have, all the context that has a very important effect on the students. As we can see, some students, because the technology gap, have to desert. Some students can submit their activities. The teachers have to adapt their class to the online classes. So